Okay, welcome back to Edie Live here at COP28, here in the blue zone of COP28 among the various numbered buildings here where discussions are ongoing. One of the key voices for these discussions is that of Indigenous communities. But is that voice being heard enough here at this COP? I'm delighted now to be joined by Hindou Oumarou Ibrahim, who is the president of the Indigenous Women and Peoples of Chad. She's going to discuss this with me a little bit now. Hindou, hello. Thanks so much for joining us. Perhaps you could just start by talking to us a little bit about your great organisation and your work and your mission coming into this COP.
Firstly, thank you very much for having me here. And yes, I'm coming from Chad. I'm coming from Bororo people who are a indigenous nomadic pastoralist community. And I'm leading the Indigenous Women and People Association of Chad that work on concrete project implementation on the ground with the communities, especially on the women land right, women traditional knowledge, and with the community chiefs to the land demarcations to do through 3D or 2D participatory mapping by using science knowledge, technology, and traditional knowledge to help better manage the natural resources. And now my mission, of course, to represent my people, but also to represent all the indigenous peoples of the world as being the co-chair of the International Indigenous People Forum on Climate Change.
Yeah, so amazing work. So you do 3D mapping of how climate change is impacting communities out there. How have you seen that impact? I imagine it's quite shocking.
I mean, when we talk about climate change, and in my home country, Chad, we are the concrete face of the climate. So we already reached like 1.5 degrees Celsius, the Paris Agreement goal for the world. We reach it home. We do have all the rain who are either coming a lot to clean everything and do the flood, or either we do not have enough and then everything is drying up. So the two extreme weather giving the consequences of the food insecurity, violence between the communities fighting to get access to the resources, migration internally, and societal way of living that is changed. And at the end of the day, of course, we have to act alone. And this is where the participatory mapping also contribute to help the community resilience.
So it'd be great to then talk about the role that this COP is playing in supporting Indigenous communities. We heard coming into the COP from the presidency that they were going to be putting a lot of additional efforts in to ensure Indigenous people and communities can be here and be present. Do you feel that? Do you feel like Indigenous communities are being given enough of a platform at this COP28?
COP28 have the record on number for indigenous peoples to participate. We are over 400 who are in the blue zone getting access to the rooms. And when you go to all the negotiation rooms, to all the parallel event rooms, you can meet an indigenous person around this place. So this is really tremendous. And of course, as you said, the financial support for indigenous peoples, it is important, but getting indigenous peoples in the tables, that's what we are asking for. Now the participation is not only in logistics. We wanted to have the participation into the outcome of the decision of this COP. We are the second week already. So what will be the role of indigenous peoples on the loss and damage? We wanted to have a seat as observer, active one, on the board of the loss and damage. We wanted to have a direct access finance when they talk about all the billions of commitments. We wanted to have the right of indigenous peoples to be onto the Article 6, where they're talking about the carbon market. We wanted to have free, prior, and informed consent. So all those outcomes must have the indigenous peoples, not only references, but being an active on those decisions.
And obviously one of the biggest enablers to answer a lot of those questions is that of funding. And we heard at COP26 this announcement of $1.7 billion worth of funding going into supporting Indigenous communities and local natural habitats. But the reality is a lot of that money hasn't reached those communities. There was a report that was released, I think, just in the last week, which showed that only around just over 2% of that funding has made its way through to the Indigenous communities here. Where does that challenge sort of sit for you? What's going on, and why is that money not reaching where it needs to go?
This is a big challenge. We all celebrated COP26, where they announced 1.7 billion for indigenous peoples-led solution. We said like, okay, finally they are listening. The money can go to our peoples. My grandmother, my cousin can get access to conserve all our traditional knowledge and to fight climate change. At the end of the day, last year, COP27, they announced only 7% of the money went to the indigenous peoples. The question for us is like, where is the money then? And then we figured out the money went back to the same channel. Big NGOs, UN, government. And we said, this is not the direct access finance. You cannot announce it on our name, use it differently, and say you give us the money. So this is the paradox we do have. So we set up now discussions around what is the meaning of direct access finance for indigenous peoples. And we are asking them that it is not an issue of capacity as they are saying. If we have the capacity of protecting 80% of the world's biodiversity, 1/4 of the earth, we are capturing the carbon double time than anyone around the world. Why we cannot manage the money? So they must change the way that they wanted to give the money. They must adapt to the rules that indigenous people are setting. So then we know it is a direct access finance. Otherwise, it will only a commitment, and commitment will never defeat all the climate action we want to have.
And just finally then, I wanted to just get your take on, we're almost through, we're kind of into week 2 of COP28. What does a good COP28 look like for yourself, for Indigenous communities? Are there 1 or 2 particular announcements that you're looking out for over the next few days?
The COP28 will look a success for us if we have a binding decisions on the global stock take. Global stock take have all the subject that we are talking about it. So if it is binding, so then we know the implementation can happen. We wanted to have the language of phasing out fossil fuel, not phasing down. We wanted to see how the just transitions energy can respect the right of the communities, can respect the extraction of the mineral without regulations, to be a binding regulation for all of them to help us protect the high spot biodiversity of this mineral. And also these just transitions must be just to serve the developing world who do not get chance to develop, not again going back to serve the developed who are already and who are going again to overdevelop or to change to the luxuries actually to get the electricity, while the developing countries do not have access to water to drink.
And just lastly then, I mean, we've talked a lot about the role of governments and where the financing is kind of coming in or not coming in. What about the role of business? There's a lot of businesses here at this COP, big businesses, investment firms. What role can businesses play in ensuring Indigenous communities are put front and centre of any efforts to tackle and combat climate change?
This COP have also a unique thing because they hosted a business and philanthropic summit. So during this summit, we hear that many business also announced a lot of funding. So what I want that the business fund to do not be also like the one we get announced earlier. We don't want to have only a commitment. How the funding can reach directly the communities. And business have ability to do that. They do not have like the same regulations on election like the countries does. It's not about every 5 years who is voting for you. It is about how your business can be sustainable, how you can respect the environment, nature, and peoples, how you can create a great place. I meet so many sustainability officers from many private sectors. If they do have sustainability officer and they care about the sustainability, they must respect the right of indigenous peoples and put the indigenous solutions in the middle of their business. We are the people who can be advisor on what they are doing, the decision that they are taking. They are referring to more technical advisor or whatever who went to school. But the community who didn't went to school, they might be a best advisor to a thriving business that can respect the planet and people.
Well, Hindou, I could talk to you a lot more about this issue. It's such a critical one. There is an increasing voice, I think, here at this COP compared with previous, and that's thanks very much to the great work of people like yourself and organisations like yours. There's plenty more conversations I know that need to happen over the next few days to progress this particular issue. So we'll let you get on to those, and we'll bring you many more interviews to come here at Edie Live at COP28.